Hello, welcome to Cash on the Hood. I'm your host, Jason Sauer. I'm here with Marty Warhola and Steven Sickles. But before all that, I need you to like, subscribe, all those things on your audio platform. We need the help to grow this show. You guys have been doing really good lately. I hear that we have some really great numbers, but help us out. Please like and subscribe. Share this with your friends if you think Cash on the Hood is pretty cool. So is this your first time hearing it? Cash on the Hood is about art, it's about hustle, and it's a little bit about Demolition Derby. So today I am bringing you two great hustlers from Pennsylvania. These guys both own scrapyards in a way, and they're going to have a lot of things to talk about today, which is going to be pretty cool. But our guest today is Marty Warhola, which is the nephew of Andy Warhol, if you guys know who Andy Warhol is. Not everybody does, which is surprising to me. But Marty, tell them who you are.
Well, I have a scrapyard on the Northside Scrap Metals, previously called Paul Warhola Scrap Metals. And you might ask me how I ended up in the scrap business. I tell people how long you've been doing this, since birth, actually. So my dad had we lived out in Jeffersonboro on Guildhall Road, and my dad had a scrapyard. We called it the Hill, and he used to buy metal from another larger scrapyard, Tube City Iron and Metal, in the South Hills, and he'd take it up there and sort it. And as children, we'd go up there, and we were his work crew. Mm-hmm. We'd be cleaning metal and material, and he had some free help, I guess. But later on this is probably in the early 60s, and then later in the later 60s, he bought a scrapyard, or started a scrapyard in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. And we were there probably for 20 years, but in the process, he bought a scrapyard on the north side, Saul Mandel's scrapyard. And so I've been down there since I was 16, 17 years old. And I came from the suburban into the urban. And it was quite a wake-up call for me, because I was,
You're in the heart of the north side.
Yes.
Where all the action's at. And
I kind of loved it, and I grew to love the north side. And I live out in 84. I live in the country, but I spend most of my time down there, most of my life, I should say, and have a very thriving business, and really enjoy it, and the people and the neighborhood and everything going on down there.
When I first moved to Pittsburgh, I moved to Buena Vista there in the Mexican War Streets, and I was so excited to hear that you were just a block away from me, and I went over there immediately. So when I first moved here, Steven, I was all about art, and I couldn't believe that Andy Warhol, his nephew, had a scrapyard where I like to make, how I like to make art out of metal.
Absolutely.
There it was. All the metal I ever needed for my art supplies right here. Right where it was pretty cool. You have a pretty amazing place. Steven does scrap too, right?
Yes.
Tell them about what you do, Steven.
So I'm more into the automotive core, so I deal with the small parts off the vehicle. I don't deal with, we do get whole vehicles in occasionally, but we deal more with the alternators, AC compressors, starters, catalytic converters, aluminum rims, rotors, some turbos, some injectors, a little bit of all that.
Batteries. You have so many batteries.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, Marty, how has the scrap business changed? It went from aluminum and copper, and now things are like, there's a catalytic converter market that's really, is it like one of the, what's your catalytic converter market like there in the north side?
Yeah, my converter business is kind of minor. I buy everything down there, and I just wanted to point out, when we bought the scrapyard back in the 78, 79, we unearthed a lot of material there that was there from the previous owners. It's been a scrapyard probably for 100 years, if you can believe it. Buried in the ground were inner tubes, tires, batteries. I heard that they bought cardboard, rags, furniture. So people think recycling is something new. During the war, they bought pretty much anything and everything. And it was kind of interesting to find all these materials buried under the ground, because I guess they bought so much it got buried under the dirt. So we were like mining there, digging the ground out. It was probably 10 feet higher than, it's only probably an acre of ground or so, but we had to dig it out to get to the level ground.
You find any cannonballs? I hear that if you dig in the city of Pittsburgh deep enough, you'll find a cannonball.
Yeah, that's more around Lawrenceville, I guess, right?
Yeah. I didn't know if Northside had some armory, too.
Probably somewhere around the aviary. I think there was a prison there, from the old days. But anyway, right now we buy, steel and all the non-ferrous metals and, of course, the converters, which is a part of my business.
Now, do you, like Steven wakes up in the morning looking at the stock exchange in China? Is that something you do too?
I do, but more so for copper, because that's probably one of the bigger items we buy.
What's the first thing you look up in the morning, Steven?
Platinum, palladium, and rhodium.
See how he knew it. I
Yes.
knew that he know. He's an investor. He wants to know exactly what everything's trading at.
Yes,
Isn't that interesting?
it is.
I think it's cool. Like you guys, people think, oh, just some junk metal, but you guys have to like really watch the stock market because your life is based around how this stuff is trading.
And I'm sure, Stephen, you've seen it where it's taken a big drop and you're like, oh gosh, I got this inventory. It's like you're probably nervous about, having that material around, or I don't know if you have it covered or not.
Yeah, once you get to the volume that I do move, you're able to hedge the materials, it's called. So I do most of the time have it covered. There are times that I'm open to the market, which can be very, very stressful.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Steven's having a hard time moving batteries right now, right?
Yeah, I'm trying not to even purchase any. That's how bad they've been.
Well, I've heard that the reason the batteries are falling is because they're not selling the new cars, and there's not a need for car batteries because they're not selling cars like they used to because they're still looking for the undiscovered chip somewhere.
Yeah, it's
I would love to have more insight than I have on that subject. So
Yeah.
well. So, what do you think is the most cash producing material at your shop?
Probably the catalytic converters, and then I mean, copper and the non-ferrous metals. We buy a lot of aluminum, stainless.
I brought whole houses full of copper to you for years and years as we were renovating houses. You always paid for lunch, and I loved that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'd go down there and just get enough for everybody to go lunch there in the north side there at the deli, in the Northside deli. That's pretty fun. Now, do you have who do you sell to? Do you sell to like somebody like someone like Steven, or is there someone how does that work once you're out?
Well, there's so many different converters. I have a hard time on the buying end telling what they're worth. So I have a buyer in New Jersey that when someone brings a converter in, I take a photo of it and then I send it to him, and he gets back to me and tells me the value, and that's how I price it.
Steven, do you get photos all day and night of converters?
unfortunately,
Is your phone all day long? Please tell me how much this is worth.
yes, it's hectic.
Is it all night long, or do you shut the phone off
I try to cut it
after a while?
off, but it seems to not work.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone's always curious what they have, even if they already have it. They just have to know.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, we hauled a converter all the way to Minnesota to find out it was an aftermarket one, so it was only worth $26. So my feelings were hurt. We had thought we could sell like a $200-$300 converter in Minnesota and then go buy a car with it, wreck it, sell the converter from out from underneath it. We thought we were going to have some seed money for this project. So our seed money was $26 to buy a car with. So that one didn't really work out for us. See, had I called Steven Sickles first, I would have known that was an aftermarket converter, but I didn't.
You didn't tell me, and we were just sort of trying to do the process of the snowball effect to buying a car and showing how you could get one reasonably.
Yeah, that one didn't really work out for us. You guys want me to talk about that touchy subject? You guys want to? So I'm going to bring it up anyway because the fans want to know. So yesterday I was talking to Mark Zingarelli. So I have someone who's in the NFT Bitcoin business who wants me to paint this mural that we're going to drive around Art Basel in Miami. And on it is this Rolls Royce that they want me to paint, and this billionaire guy. So it's this billionaire guy that I'm painting for that we're going to haul this stuff around. So we were having a conversation. I was like, hey, yeah, tomorrow's the podcast. I'm going to have Marty Warhola on. Everyone in the city knows who you are, all right? Just so you know. When I take pictures of you, people are like, Marty.
Cool.
That's pretty cool. So he's like, oh, cool. And he's like, and the first question is like, aren't they all stolen? And I was like, listen, I don't think it's like that. I think there's 800 million cars were built since 1980. And I really only think there's like 1,000 of them stolen. But the media really jumps on that, like they're stolen. But you guys are very reputable people who do your business correctly. And I was hoping you could dispel that myth of you guys being this middleman of something. Are you guys able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel the media, I'm a big believer in attention is attention. So whether it's positive or negative, it gets views. So the negative sometimes is easier for them to portray and easier for them to gain attention or speed. So I feel the majority of it from what I see. And I mean, there was a stigma for about 1.5 years, 2 years ago where it did get a little bit bad. But the reputable buyers are doing the things correctly that they need to do. I'm confident that my customer base is very solid, and I definitely do my due diligence in making sure that the pieces are legitimately obtained. There's requirements that we have to do, and we both follow. So,
I mean, you can smell someone when they walk in, whether or not that's like you meet so many characters that you can have a judge of character pretty much right away. Because in the scrap game, you're going to have some characters. You're going to have the people with the shopping carts showing up with wherever they got that little bit of metal. But it's, that's tough for you guys. You guys have to be like the barrier, you guys block and, I don't want to get into it, but you guys really hold the line on, what's happening out here in these streets,
Yeah, I agree with Steven. We most of our customers, I believe, are legit. And, if sometimes if I'll get someone who will come in, they'll say, hey, what's the best converter on the, and I'll say, why do you want to know that?
Right. And,
but I would say almost all of them are legit because people will say, hey, I just took this off my car and I want to know what I can get out of it, and
yeah.
We get the proper ID and buy them accordingly. And if there's any discrepancies, the police will, they'll call, say they're looking for some. We've helped them on many cases on it's not only converters, but all scrap, that's been stolen. We work with them and always have, and got along with the authorities,
That's, you probably people don't realize that's part of your business and your lifestyle is you guys really have to be tough. You really do have to be tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's nothing better than getting someone that's done a crime and catching them. I feel good about it.
Right.
Oh, and it doesn't stop there because I've needed that help in instances because I've had stuff stolen off me as well. So, I mean,
yes,
it's sort of one of those things that if I feel that I give more than I receive in that category, but I've always helped as much as I can.
Right. Well, you guys are good guys. That's why we have you here on Cash on the Hood.
Nice.
We love you.
Thanks.
So that's pretty interesting. I know the fans want to hear about that, and I know we touched on it. It's a touchy subject because it's fast cash, and there's people out there who live lottery ticket to lottery ticket, and that's one of their attempts at getting through that. But you guys really hold the line of being reputable business owners. So I think that's pretty commendable.
Thank you.
In today's fast money,
world. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So let me segue a little bit to some artwork. So Marty, for those of you who are looking at home, Marty did the paintings behind us of Andy Warhol inspired paintings of Marilyn Monroe. Now what was it like growing up in the shadow of your uncle?
Well, I guess when I was really little, we didn't really know my uncle was that famous. So we would make, when Andy left for college in a few years, he took his mother with him that was living in Oakland. And so we would visit my grandmother and Andy when we were children quite often. And so we made these trips to his, house on Lexington Avenue in New York.
Did you drive there from Pittsburgh, or
Yes.
you take the train?
Yes, in a station wagon.
I was like, how did you get the whole family there? Because you have a big family.
There's 7 of us in our family, but we're pretty spread apart, 20-year difference. So
wow,
it was usually like 2 or 3 of us at a time, you know.
Now, when I first met you, for those of you at home that know my sculptures that I make out of smash metal, there was an artist during Andy's time called John Chamberlain, and you always tell me about that. Was it at the top of the stairs?
Yes. So you arrive at Andy's, and then you'd go up the steps to the second floor, and there'd be a giant car crushed. I don't know. It seemed like a large piece, you know, maybe 6 feet tall. And I'd say to Uncle Andy, I'd say, "What do you have a car in here for?" And he'd say, "Oh, that's an expensive piece of artwork from John Chamberlain." And I'd be like, "Wow,
I could do that."
But his house was almost a little bit like a amusement park fun house in a way, because he had carousel horses with like half men and half horse. He had those machines that you'd crank up and look at the film flickering. I don't know what you call those things. But he had large busts of people and statues. And then he had, of course, the Punch Man, who we used to call the Boogeyman. It was like a cigar figure from the old days. A punch figure, you know, is like the Joker on the card, you know. But he had a statue, but we were kind of fearful of it.
Nice. Did you get to meet any of his characters from his factory? Like how much did he let you into his life?
Absolutely none.
Really?
He didn't bring anyone into his personal home, you know, at all from the factory. That was just a separate entity that he didn't want, you know, his family mixed with it, which was commendable, like you say, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, how big was his place there in Manhattan?
I mean,
was it multi-floors? Or
yeah, it was probably 4 floors.
Whoa.
Large home.
Whoa.
And
that's impressive.
Filled with cats that you never saw. Honestly, I don't know where they were, but you'd see one once in a while, and they'd be disappear. So it was like, did they live in the walls or what? But Andy had a lot of.
Did he take you out to eat, or did he make food at home? How did you guys go out as a family?
We never went out there. We just pretty much stayed at home, and they'd go to the grocery store or whatever. But I remember going to the park in Central Park with the ice cream man.
Yeah.
You know, selling ice cream. It was pretty cool. It was quite an adventure going and seeing him.
Now, how old were you when he passed away?
I'm trying to think. He passed away in 86, 87. So
you knew him when you were 20s, 30 years old.
Oh yeah. I mean, so he probably as a child we'd visit him quite often up until I was probably 10, 11 years old. And then when my grandmother, you know, came back to live with us for a year before she passed, every couple of years we'd go up and visit him. So I saw him growing up all the way, you know.
That's pretty. Do you know who Andy Warhol is, Steven?
I know of him. I've seen some of his art, but like when you're talking about the factory, I have no clue what that is.
It's a space where they really went crazy making art. They made videos. It was precursor to the Club Kids. You probably don't know about Club Kids either. Okay.
Not at all.
There's a nightlife scene that Andy Warhol and Michael Jackson were a part of in Manhattan. Back when celebrities could go in public before the age of security. So they were a part of that post-disco scene where just about anything goes at these giant parties in a warehouse.
Studio 54, right?
Yes, very. So he would be with like Lou Reed making videos. And
met him.
You met Lou Reed?
Yes.
Nice.
He did it. It was after Andy passed. He did a tribute album in the Strip District at the Metropole, and spent a lot of time with him. Pretty cool guy.
That's pretty cool. So what do you think, Brian? All right, so we're going to take a break. We're going to end this podcast with this right here, and then we're going to come right back to you for the next episode. So for those of you listening at home, Cash on the Hood on all your favorite audio channels. I need you to please like, subscribe, please share. I'm telling you, I've been traveling, and people have been loving this podcast, Steven.
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize how much that we're a part of people's lives. So I appreciate those of you who have taken the time out of your life to listen to us tell a couple stories here. So be sure to check out episode 6, where we pick right back up with Marty Warhola, and we'll get back into some more of this scrap and artwork. And, a little bit of demolition derby. You have seen a demolition derby?
Yes.
All right, we'll get to that.